Hi, everyone. I'm Don Saucy. I'm the Faculty Associate Director of our Teaching and Learning Center, and I'm so excited you've made your way to our professional development series. We're to begin, as we always do, with a land acknowledgement. Tech has been pesky this week. How are we doing, Jeff?
Are you not seeing it?
No.
Oh my goodness. Sorry,
Mhm.
buddy. Give me one moment.
There we go.
Okay. Let me.
As the first land grant institution established under the 1862 Morrill Act, we acknowledge that the state of Kansas is historically home to many native nations, including the Kaw, Osage, and Pawnee, among others. Furthermore, Kansas is the current home to four federally recognized native nations: the Prairie Band Potawatomi, the Kickapoo Tribe of Kansas, the Iowa Tribe of Kansas and Nebraska, and the Sac and Fox Nation, Missouri, in Kansas and Nebraska.
Many native nations utilized the western plains of Kansas as their hunting grounds, and others, such as the Delaware, were moved through this region during Indian removal efforts to make way for white settlers. It's important to acknowledge this, since the land that serves as the foundation of this institution was, and still is, stolen land.
We remember these truths because K-State's status as a land grant institution is a story that exists within ongoing settler colonialism and rests on the dispossession of indigenous peoples and nations from their lands. These truths are often invisible to many. The recognition that K-State's history begins and continues through indigenous contexts is essential
Please remember
These truths.
because we still remember.
Thank you. As I mentioned at the onset, you've made your way to our professional development series. Our series meets at noon on Wednesdays over Zoom in real time, all throughout the academic year. We also archive our events for asynchronous viewing on the TLC webpage, so you can definitely check those out. We also have the potential for you to earn a TLC Professional Development Certificate, either as a faculty member or staff member, or as a graduate student. You can do those. Attend enough events, do some reflections, attend some need-to-know events. All that information is available on a link that one of my colleagues is going to drop in the chat here momentarily. We also have the opportunity, if you're a faculty member and you're looking to extend the teaching excellence of others, not just your own, but that of others, you can potentially become a TLC fellow. And information will be available for how you do that at that link too. And then typically what happens is you present next year in our professional development series. So it's a great way to kind of contribute even through this mechanism. We also have a TLC Hub. This is a Teams channel that we have for communication about our events, also for the opportunity for us to engage in real-time conversation, real-time chats, and those sorts of things. So you can check that out too. Again, my colleagues will drop a link to that if you want to be added to our TLC Hub. Next week, we have a great event. It's going to be a need-to-know event. It's called Getting to Know Your Student Support Colleagues. And this is going to be a combination of a number of different people who do a number of different very important things in our campus, including Andy Thompson from the Office of Student Support and Accountability, Camilla Roberts from the Honor Integrity System, and Jason Bisberg Tomlinson from our Student Access Center. So it's kind of be one-stop shopping for all the ways that we can help our students across a lot of different things. But that's next week. Today, we've got a great one for you. As a lot of you have kind of been in Canvas, you've kind of noticed suddenly you've got these little dials, and those are color-coded dials next to files and things like that in Canvas. And we're supposed to move toward accessibility. Well, we've got the folks today that are going to tell you how to do that. So I'm super excited. We have Todd Mowbray and colleagues from our instructional design team talking about an introduction to Anthology Ally. I will tell you from personal experience, it's not as hard as it might seem at the beginning. And I'm so excited that you're all here. So Todd, colleagues, the floor is yours.
Thank you. And if I could have permission to share my screen, I have a PowerPoint. Christina Van Ederson is here with me, and she did a bunch of live and online introductions to Anthology Ally that were got people started. And if you've seen one of those, this is going to be very similar. I'm going to add a little bit here to the beginning, but what she had was so good that I'm going to hand it off to her about halfway through, and she's going to share the how-tos and the tools of what all you can do with Ally. So let me get my Zoom window back up here and see if I can share now. Jeff, do you have the ability to allow me to share?
I am looking for that right now. Not sure where that is. Todd, I know that you submitted a request to share. Would you mind just doing that again? I think that might be the easiest way, and I'll get this ironed out before the next event.
Okay. Yep, I think it's only letting me do it once because now it just says the host isn't allowing sharing. Usually for me, it's on the green share button, and when you're the host, it has an extra choice on there to allow multiple presenters to share or something like that.
There we go. I think the floor is yours. Thank you.
No problem. Okay. There we go. Can everybody see the PowerPoint now?
Yep.
All right. So, as I said, this is sort of modified from what, and Christina and I are new to the college, and we both came from schools that had Ally previously, and I think we were both the administrators for Ally, so we're big fans. A lot of software, the sales promise doesn't measure up to what the software does. And with Ally, I've never heard many complaints besides the files that it tells you you need to fix, but the way it operates, and especially for students, is just really amazing. So what we're going to talk about is some frequently asked questions, what students see and what they gain from Ally, Ally gauges for your eyes only. Nobody else sees those red gauges. Nobody else sees that score, especially your students. So, and then viewing your scores and remediating your content and prioritizing the work. Those are part of Christina's presentation, and she will take over at that point. So the first thing is when you open a course in Canvas and you see Ally, you'll see these little red gauges next to some of your files, most of your files, and when you're editing your images, and when you're editing, you'll see it in your editor. Only you see those. I put a big do not or no sign, Ghostbuster sign is what I call it, over the top of that. And that means it's for your eyes only, and the students do not see that. The students don't know if your course is a 1% or a 99%. They don't know. So what the students see is a window that has a little A on it, and I don't have the link right here on this page, but when they pop on that, I guess it's right down here. I don't think you can see my mouse, but it's a little A next to the blue download. And when they click on that, most files, it's going to, Ally will be able to produce for the students all of these things. It will be able to produce a tagged PDF. That's probably the one that pops up sporadically now because that's something that they're working on. But they will be able to produce HTML for viewing, or EPUB, or electronic braille, or an audio version, or a translated version. And for you language instructors, that can be turned off. So we wanted to go ahead and have it on for the most people possible to start with. And a lot of schools turn that off because of languages and courses like that, but that can be turned off. So that will be part of the training too. These files are only as good as the source file that they come from. So a lot of what we talk about here is remediation of your original file. So if it's a PowerPoint or a Word document or things like that, the better built and the more accessible the original document is, the better output these alternative formats provide. And the less you don't have to create your class 6 or 7 times. You don't have to create it, you know, different versions for different people. And that's one of the main questions we get a lot is, am I going to have to recreate my class in a very boring format to make it accessible? And if you just take your existing documents and make those accessible and make good original files, then when the student needs to output it, or when we need to make an accommodation for a specific student, then that makes that job that much easier. I'm seeing a few things pop up in the chat. Is there anything that I need to stop for and answer? I'm full screen right now, so I'm gonna.
Oh, Andy just asked, we have to turn it off by item, right? And that is correct. So if you do turn it off, it's per item. You cannot turn it off for the whole course. And you can also not turn off just one type. So if you're like, oh, I actually don't want students to have the Beeline reader version. I prefer they just have, the couple of these other ones. It's either all or nothing on an item, and it is on in the whole course. So you do have to go. For folks like language instructors, it's a little bit of extra work. So
Yeah.
Boo.
So we'll talk about that is probably one of the 50-50 ones where on the administrative side that can be turned off one at a time, and some places it is. So it's just really getting a feel. We wanted to turn it on with as much possible as we could to let everybody see what Ally can do to start out here. But if that's a big problem for you, please contact me or one of your instructional designers, and they'll help with that. What faculty see is they will see gauges that are red, orange, light green, or dark green that score their content. This shows up in a lot of places. Right now, this screenshot is in the files, and the files just updated its view. So depending on which version of the files folder you see, you may see that accessibility row and you may not see that row. It also depends on how wide your screen is. It's going to be the first one to go if your screen isn't wide enough. So up in here, up in the top part by where it says folder and upload and places like that, there may be a choice there that says switch to the old view or something like that if you're not seeing the accessibility buttons. But then those items right there are clickable. So if you want to see what is exactly wrong with your score, then you can click on that, and not only does it tell you what's wrong with it, but it most times, I won't say all times, but most times gives you some tips on why that's bad for accessibility and some ideas to fix it. Now, this is where we're going to hand off and switch over and let the expert who's done this presentation like 25 times, she probably feels like 100 times, but we want you to hear the same thing and get the same information. And I don't want to be going away from the company line and giving you information. I work in the Student Access Center, and then I'm a former instructional designer, not for K-State, but I'm a former instructional designer, and I meet with the instructional designers. But for the actual training with using Ally and remediating the files, the instructional designers are in charge of that. I usually work more, and Christina works a little bit more. She straddles the two departments as far as remediating for a single student. So if we have a single student and that's something that we talk about very often: accessibility versus accommodations. Accessible documents are great for everybody, and accommodations are that one file for that one person, the Braille file or something like that. So I don't want to get too deep into accommodations because that loses a lot of people. So there are trainings weekly. The ID has office hours, and it's not crowded in there. They get to know each other very well in those office hours, sometimes because they're the only ones there. So that's a weekly thing, right, Christina?
Yes, every Tuesday and Wednesday, and we'll be sure to put the link for that in the chat.
Yep. And so, like I said, this is the slide where I'll hand it over. But the reason that us two are doing this presentation today is because we've used Ally before. We sort of know some of the common pitfalls, and there's not a lot. The worst thing I can say about Ally is it's still developing its strategy for PDFs. And we're still developing our strategy for PDFs based on how quickly they fix things, and it changes almost every week on how they fix that. So, and we're hoping to sort of save those for last, fix the easy things first. And I'm not going to steal too many of Christina's slides, and I'll let her take over. Now, Christina, do you want to present, or do you want me to just be your next
Sure,
person?
yeah, I'll take over the screen share, and it looks like I maybe have access. So yeah, I think we'll be good to go.
And
Okay.
I'll be here until the end, and I'm going to share my. We're going to have a Q&A at the end, so I'm not going away. I'm just handing it over to the expert.
All right. One of many. All of the instruction designers are getting very robust in using Ally. So we're going to talk about I'm going to divert away from the slides and mostly just share my screen and talk through some of the fixes in Allies and how we prioritize our work. So Todd's already talked about what students see and gain from Ally. Those alternative formats are a game changer for our students. It's so awesome. Again, those gauges, those are for your eyes only. And I want to talk a little bit more about viewing your scores, your meeting content, and how we prioritize all of this work. So in the chat, I put a link to this workbook. You can use the QR code. You can use this tiny URL. This is a living document. We continue to add to it and update to it. I'm always learning more about digital accessibility all the time. Most people who are in this field are. So as we learn, as we grow, we can continue to add to that document. You don't have to be logged into your K-State account to access it, but just like you did that for the Zoom, I think you can handle that just because it is for our employees only. So a couple other spots that you can view those scores. So yes, you're going to see those little gauges, but one of my favorite spots to look is on a specific page. So within this specific page, a great page by an instructor, got like, here's your getting started tasks, here's what you need to do, all sorts of stuff. But another spot that you can see this gauge is on an individual page, and that's where you can view the accessibility score. So from here, I'm going to go ahead, and this is called the instructor feedback panel. And I'm going to go to all issues. So a couple of these you can fix right away. And then another one says, oh, these headings, this doesn't begin at the right level. It says guidance is not available. I'll provide that guidance for you now. So on any individual Canvas page, we have an H1, a heading 1. If you formatted a journal article before, you have probably used the heading structures within Microsoft. So for example, this right here is your title. So you can see I've labeled it title. This is my H1, heading 1. These are all H2s. So it's just the outline. That is super important for accessibility. If you have cerebral palsy, or you're not good at using your mouse, or you just don't like using your mouse. I had computer science interns before, they never touch their mouse. They're always using heading navigation. So heading structure is secretly an accessibility feature. This one, however, and I've been editing as we go, but we need to make sure that this is an H2, and technically these should all be at an H2. I was editing this right before y'all came in. So these should be H2s. You don't want to skip. If you want the font to be smaller, make the font smaller, but it needs that tag. It needs the correct heading level. So let me open up that chart again. All right, and then did I fix all of my heading levels? I think I did. I think it's just being silly. All right. Another item, I like pulling this one out just because it's kind of a weird one. You may have noticed it in your syllabus, if you're using an old version of the syllabus, where Ally was telling you, oh, this link is broken. But then you clicked on the link and it was still working. Well, that's because when there are major changes to the website, DCM sets up redirects. Very normal. Ally isn't smart. It's not measuring your teaching. I really want you guys to understand that. It is just measuring some aspects of WCAG, the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. So this example right here, I love, it says, hey, this link is broken. I'm going to go to this link. Sure enough, it works. So why is Ally giving me that error? Well, there's actually some slight differences in this URL here. So this one has a colon. This one actually has a percentage sign. LibreText, if you're using LibreText, I know a lot of people on campus are, including Mr. Darren Epping-Fuentes, it'll give you this false error. Ally is smart enough to know the link is broken, but not smart enough to know that there's a redirect strategy in place. So we would just go and update it with that new link. Voila, update. And I must still have one of these. Oh, sorry, this one is still at an H3. There we go, heading 2. And are you gonna go 100% for me? There we go. So now it's 100%. So another page if you're just going through. Now, one thing I will notice, I want you guys to take note of, is this guy sometimes will have, a number and say there are accessibility issues. Even before we fixed those, it said there weren't any problems. This is the advantage to Ally. It's a little bit more robust than the built-in Canvas editor. Okay. So that's just your individual pages. That's your WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get editor. And I'm actually going to cancel that so that the next time we do this, we have a nice messy page to fix. But right now in your courses, you all have the Ally Course Accessibility Report in your left-hand navigation. It's probably way down here at the bottom. Don't worry, students can't see this. This is a lot like my media site, which is not available for students. So if you want to move it around, if you don't want it down at the bottom, you can bring it up here. Again, this is not viewable to students. It is only viewable to the owner of the course. Other instructors could see it if you're co-teaching, which is nice. So we're going to go to the Ally Course Accessibility Report. And then we see our score in the course. We see the number of items in the course. There's 68. A little small, but it's just a demo course. And then a breakdown of what types of content are in the course. So how do we prioritize the work? Always start here. In here, you're going to find alternative text, heading structure, which I just showed you how to fix. Those are the things that you want to prioritize the most. This score will fly right on up when you fix your alternative text. That is because Ally weighs very heavily alternative text because it's really important for students who need it. It's not optional. It is really helpful for things like search engine optimization. It helps if you have a low internet or a poor internet connection. You might see alternative text. You'll have that box with the red X and a couple of words. That's the alternative text. But it is essential for students with low vision or no vision. So we want to make sure that it is in there. So when it comes to prioritizing the work, there's 2 different categories we have. Our easy fixes and our big wins. And I am going to talk about PDFs today for just a second. I know Dennis Lang asked about that. But this is where you start. This is definitely the order I would start in. So first is the alt text on images. On average, over the course of time, most images in Canvas have not been tagged. It's going up, that's great. But I would love to get this to as close to 0 as possible. I can walk you through one of those examples if you like. But for now, I'd say add alternative text. We've had one training, we'll have another one. If you teach STEM in that training plan, We have a STEM specific alternative text session coming up. If you're using charts, if you're using plots, diagrams, they need extra attention for alternative text. So the second thing is using that correct heading structure in Canvas and documents. Sometimes Ally will flag and say, oh, you're not using the right heading structure, or you have no heading structure. If you made something in Word, you want to make sure you're still using that heading structure. If you're using Canvas, you want to follow the logical heading structure. Again, this is something that'll help your score go up really quickly. Okay, we're talking about PDFs 3 times today. I'm going to talk about the 2 easiest one first. And this is definitely the order that we do this in. This is the order I would suggest you correct your items in. So there's another time we're going to talk about PDFs. We're going to save that one for last. So the first is, can it be a document? And by that, I mean a Word document or a PowerPoint document. Did you make it in Word? I'd save it in Word. Did you make it in PowerPoint? Save it in PowerPoint. I do think a lot of the reason that people save things in PDFs is because, oh, it feels secure, feels like they can't mess with it. That's not necessarily true anymore. Adobe's been a little bit more flexible, and you can do edits, you can do changes, you can copy. I would suggest saving documents you author in Word and documents you author in PowerPoint as those file types. Just like the workbook that we sent y'all, that's a read-only file. You can't edit it. You could save a copy of it and edit it, put your known notes on, or delete the parts you don't care about, whatever you want. Saving as read-only is a huge benefit. There are ways to take a Word and save it as a PDF and have it be accessible. It's just a lot of extra steps. Saving as read-only is helpful. There's directions on the workbook for how to do that. So that's the first thing that I would definitely consider. Second, we like the library. The library is great. If you have downloaded a document from the library and put it in your course, I would suggest altering that. There's many benefits to that. But the first is that it's going to have the most accessible version when you use the permalink. So Andy Faber is here, and she gets my favorite example. So thank you so much for being my guinea pig. All right, so this is an article that Andy had put in her course. And it says, ooh, it's low on accessibility. What's wrong with it? All sorts of things. It says that the language isn't set. It says that it's untagged. It says that there's insufficient contrast. Those aren't things that are necessarily easy to fix. So if I go to insufficient text, I can see Andy put this course probably in spring 2020. We all did things during spring 2020. No judgment. Totally fine. But it's got this like light gray watermark. Thank you so much, Project Muse, for adding this light gray watermark that now makes my document inaccessible. So not super. So instead, what I would suggest is, and I'm going to be, I just always Google it. I'm the worst. I'm going to go to K-State Libraries. And instead, we can get advanced search. And even though I just did this, it's not gonna think I'm logged in. Oh, there it goes. All right. What I want you to do. Okay. I'm not a librarian. So instead, to improve the accessibility overall and teach our students about the library, which is awesome, I want to grab the permalink instead. So we're going to go here to this article, and you can grab the permalink. So I'm going to copy this to my clipboard. It's copied. But some of the advantages to this, we could see that it's a peer-reviewed article. We could go and read other articles that were in that issue. You can see related readings, especially for a grad level class that this is taught in. Lots of benefits for students. And you can see there's 2 different versions available, JSTOR, Project Muse. So it does require some coaching on your part to talk to your students about this. Instructions for that are in the workbook, and we also have a link to like permalinks, the how-to guide, the LibGuide from the library. Oh, got kicked out. So while that's signing in, here's the benefits that we see. So right now we're just on this view. We're on the HTML version of this article. It's not that long. This would be easy enough to read on your phone. PDFs aren't very robust. They're large. They don't work well on our phones very well. They take forever to download. So if I was someone who was out and about doing my homework or getting ready for class, I might just read this on my phone as this HTML version. It's not that long. I also could see myself as a student going to the download and downloading it. See, I've done this 6 times on this computer recently. I would download it, and if I wanted to print it out and highlight it and mark it up, that's also a very normal practice as well. But you've given students options by giving them the permalink. They can decide to use whichever version they want. I'm a JSTOR junkie. Like, I feel like I might just go to that JSTOR because I just like the way their pages are formatted. You've given students options by giving them the permalink. The library is getting data back on that usage. Yeah, Don.
So I understand that given the students options, fully support that. It does seem though that if we did this along with posting the PDF, that would actually be the most accessible because there's very few barriers to them actually engaging in the PDF. So I'm wondering why we're not able to do that too. One of the conversations that I'd had recently, someone had raised some concerns to me and said that what Ally is doing is it's basically setting up so we can have screen readers engage our content, but that's not the only thing that helps our students. So I get the permalink, I get all the options you just showed, but as you said, that sometimes for some students who haven't done that before, actually puts a barrier rather than increases their access to the resource. I'm just kind of wondering why it's not a both rather than we have to do it this way, not that way.
Well, and I'll say it's your class. You guys can make your own decisions. Like, that's up to you. The library is not going to get the data. If you put that permalink in your course, but nobody clicks on it, nobody uses it, the library is not going to get that data. So if we use permalink and PDF, the library's not going to get the data. They're not going to know, oh, this is a very commonly used journal article. So it's about balance. Like if you think they're not going to read the article altogether because they have to go to that permalink, we've put in an extra step. I compare this to like learning about the card catalog. Like I feel like this is just the equivalent of like, this is how you use a library when you're at a university. It is a step. You're asking them to take a step. I know that, you know, for ADHD, doing an extra step can like be difficult for folks. You ask me, you make it more complicated, I'm not going to do it. I will say the preferred answer is permalinks are going to be the best. So, and I think, I don't know what Todd's putting there, but yes. So I even downloaded a new version of this. This was the first time I did. So I put a new version in there. That new version still has issues. So another benefit when you use the permalink, if these journals get their act together, they are trying because they also want to be WCAG compliant. They also are concerned about Title II. They rely on higher ed. They're going to have the most accessible version available. So when they make updates, that permalink will still work. So it's sort of up to you, I would say, but the preferred answer is still use the permalinks. So
No, I appreciate that context. Thank you.
I have, Don, I was asked this question too, and I really pondered on it. And luckily I did a presentation. I live in Salina, and so I did a presentation in Manhattan. And then on the drive home, I really pondered on it. And the question was basically, PDFs are viewable to most people, and PowerPoint may be a larger file, and it may be they have to download it to view it, and things like that. So how is that better for the most people? And the answer is that with Ally, if you have your original file, however you made the file the first time, eventually that's going to be the least work. That's going to be, you just do it once. You do it once, you do it accessibly, and then you share that file. Then that has as much information as possible for Ally to create those other documents. So it's got 7 or 8 options to output MP3, to output a PDF, to output things like that. So it'll just be sort of a new normal of if the students enjoy, if a majority of the students still enjoy the PDF, that PDF button will be there, but it will be drawing from the original source document instead of a PDF that you made of it, which is what Adobe decided was important about your document, which isn't that great because they did it for a purpose that wasn't digital accessibility. They did it for a purpose of locking it in and printing it. So that's my long answer to why is the original file, the original Word document, or the original PowerPoint better, even though it may be a little bit bigger and it may be a little bit more steps and process. When we get to the new normal of what this is going to be, that that will give people the best end file, the best, the most
And I'm
accessible.
not challenging the advantages of permalink at all. I completely do that. I'm just saying that if the priority is providing choice, and Christina, you said it's up to us, and I heard you say that, but I'm just kind of hearing like one of those choices isn't good to provide, and that's just kind of the part I'm pushing back on, is that the spirit of accessibility is to provide lots of options. Ally then, through its computations, is eliminating one of those options that we might include along with all of these others. And like I said, I've gotten this pushback from people before. As you said, exactly as Christina said, like some people with other things other than needing screen readers might benefit, but that's not what Ally is set up to do.
Yeah, Ally is not judging your teaching. It's not judging your UDL. If you have 10 different versions of like, I'm going to have multiple means of engagement, multiple means of representation, not all of those might be accessible. And that's something that Ally is not going to check for. So that is a thing. So I had that permalink on my clipboard. So what I would do instead is, instead of just having, because I'm still an instructional designer, instead of just having this, PDF hanging out here, instead what I would do is actually build a page for it. Maybe it's your weekly readings or that reading. And I would say like, oh, in this reading you will learn yada, yada, yada. Or give them a guiding question, especially for online learning. This is just a good practice. Andy, I like to imagine you know this person because it looks like they teach at KU. So like, what's the context there? Build instructor presence through that, and then give the link. Don't put the link in here like this, just hanging out here. This actually isn't accessible. Ally doesn't check for that. Ally doesn't know that this is not accessible. Screen readers are going to hear HTTPS, and like that's just so unpleasant. So instead, I would like here, just type the world is not flat and put that in there. That is going to be more accessible. So that's what I would do for those PDFs. I don't want to talk about PDFs forever, but Dennis, you did ask one more question. What if it isn't available through the library? What if it's, through somewhere else? There are a couple of websites out there. I can't remember them off the top of my head, but there are, and this is an ID answer, not the copyright approved answer. There are lots of websites out there that are built for instructors that get you around paywalls for things like that. So I would research those. Good thing I don't remember the links to those, but I would look at those. If not, copy it and throw it in a Word document. And if you want to save it as a PDF, tag your images, build a heading structure. You still can save stuff as PDFs. You just need to build it correctly to begin with. Last thing I'll say about PDFs before we talk about it at the very, 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 very end. We had an instructor last week who is a gung-ho adjunct. I'm in love. And she had a course that she inherited that was at less than 50%. In a week, she got it to 89%. She fixed her images, she fixed her heading structure, all sorts of stuff. 50% to 89%. And she still has 109 PDFs with accessibility errors in her course. So, how is Ally scoring it? How are they prioritizing? They're prioritizing images. PDFs are important for your instruction. PDFs, most of them, are not the most important thing for accessibility. Prioritize in the order that we showed you guys. We'll talk about the OCR ones at the end. But let's trudge on. Okay. Issues of concern. These are the big bad don'ts. Please don't do these. There's only 4 of these that will give you this error in Ally. So if I go to my Ally course accessibility report, there are all of these different, there's a different color set. So there's a red exclamation point, our orange triangle, and then we have our chartreuse flag. So this one is fun too. You're going to get this one from the library PDFs a lot. This does not have a language set. Even Ally doesn't think that this is urgent. That's why it just has a little flag. It just means that it's going to be read with whatever accent. If someone has a screen reader, it's going to be read with whatever accent or intonation their screen reader is automatically set to. So this is mostly a concern for if you have a different language out there, or if the document doesn't have the correct language set. This one is actually makes me giggle. Andy, I'm picking on you today, but you have all my favorite examples. This document is very much written in English. It's meant to be printed out and brought to class. But the language on it is set to Spanish, and Ally noticed that. Andy teaches both classes in and on Spanish, and then how to teach language. So the language was set to Spanish. So just a funny error. So if somebody opened that document and was using a screen reader, it would read it with a Spanish accent. So that prioritization, I think, is helpful for people to know. So the prioritization, do not use GIFs. GIFs are a big bummer in Ally. Part of the reason for that is WCAG, Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, has a set frame rate to seconds that determines how long a GIF can play. So our wonderful presenter from last week, we will, let's see, something cute and pumpkin-y because it's that time of the year. Little David S. Pumpkins. So this is going to go ahead and play. Can you see how I can do the pause button? So that's an accessibility feature. Eventually, this is going to stop. That certain frame rates and seconds determines that it will stop. And that's so that it doesn't induce seizures. Those with photosensitive epilepsy may have a seizure because of that. So that's a feature that Microsoft has in there. You can pause it. It will stop eventually. Doesn't mean that it will totally like prevent all seizures in folks, but it's sort of like when you are watching a movie or something and it gives a warning. Hey, photosensitive viewers, be aware that there is content in here that would not be great for you. Even Ally doesn't show it. I'm going to choose not to show it in here so I don't have to ask a room full of Zoomers if they have that type of epilepsy. But yeah, anyway, it's a super cute GIF. It was great for a finals week, final countdown. It's a concert. I will say, if you're trying to be fun and communicate with your students, use a meme instead. One does not simply walk into finals. Like blind people and low vision people definitely get memes. They use the internet. Just have good alternative text on it. So you can still be fun, you can still be cutesy in your announcements. Don't use GIFs. If you need a GIF, I'm thinking like an engineering person or something needs to show how Fulcrum works, I would suggest using a video. There are ways in Canvas we can find some workarounds. It will always show up in your Ally report, but if it's 100% essential, we can offer some recommendations if it is 100% essential for instruction. So don't use GIFs, my friends. Please don't do that. A couple other ones you might find, encrypted files. These are not super popular, but if you are ever putting a password on a file to protect it for an exam, a final, something like that, don't do that. Folks with lots of different types of accessibility technology, assistive technologies, might be prevented from accessing it. So beyond just screen readers, the screen reader itself sometimes can't see the window that pops up where you put in the password. And even if they can, it might not read it because it perceives it as a security issue. If you're concerned, talk to your friendly IDs. We're here to help you, and we can think of some other creative ways to improve your test security. Malformed files. If you've taught here a long time, I bet you will find some malformed files. Specifically, if you taught here back when there was Axio and then switched to Canvas, some of those files, I think, it's my suspicion, got corrupted in the transition. And or they were built on a really old version of Word, or maybe you emailed and downloaded it, something. You're probably not using your malformed files because your students would be complaining on a regular basis that they can't open the file. Sometimes you can fix them. We put instructions in the workbook on how to fix it. Usually if you find a malformed file, you're like, oh, well, here's that ancient artifact from 2009 that I forgot to delete. So if you see those, that'll improve your score. So, let's see. I'm so sorry, Andy, about the GIFs. Okay. Last thing I'll talk about briefly. Just checking if there are any other questions we needed to address. The document is scanned, not OCR'd. Ally is going to judge these quite harshly. I will not, sometimes there is a reason for it. Like, definitely in courses, I can see there being a reason for it. Let me go to this one. So the document is scanned but not OCR'd. So it's going to get that big red one. This is the last type of PDF we're going to worry about. So, for example, maybe 100 years ago, when somebody was a grad student, they're like, oh, I'm just going to scan the textbook and put it in my class in case students need it for the first day of class. The bookstore might run out, they don't have their financial aid, they don't have access to it. Well, now there's an online version of this textbook, it's not a problem anymore. But when you're using those scanners from the library, and I did such a great job here, cutting off words. This is gonna be weird for screen readers. Like there's all sorts of problems with this, like just cutting off multiple words. That's delightful. Not high quality, even if you don't have vision issues. So this is what it means when it's scanned and not OCR'd. Optical character recognition is what that OCR means. There are two OCRs in the accessibility world of civil rights, optical character recognition. So that's the one we're talking about here. I don't think this is the end of the world. You are trying to help students. You are trying to help them, especially with, their money isn't there. I don't think this is the worst practice. Obviously, we would not do this with an entire textbook. But if you want your Ally score to go up, this would need to be OCR'd. It would also need to be tagged. So that means adding in a heading structure. It need to have the language set, the title set. There's other things you would need to do to make it accessible if you want your Ally score to go up. If you have a lot of these documents, it will hurt your Ally score. But again, think about that person from I was talking about last week, 50% to 89%, and she still has 109 PDFs. They are important to your instruction, just not always the end of the world for your score. They won't hurt your score as much as you think they are hurting your score. Now, this file would be 100% invisible to a student who uses assistive technology. This is just one image after another on a whole bunch of pages. It's scanned. So a blind student, not a low vision student, a blind student, this is 100% inaccessible to them. They don't even know what it is. And if the title isn't set, they don't even know what the title is that they're missing. PDF titles are just a little bit funky and weird. So consider why you're doing it, if it's good instructional practice, and if you want to continue to do it, you'll need to OCR it and fix it, for which we're doing a training in a couple of weeks on how to do that. It's a long process. Sometimes your best bet is to see if there's a new version, an equivalent version. Is there something else you could do? So you're not using a ton of scanned documents in your course. Yeah. So. Other questions? I think that is mostly what we were going to go through today. So we have talked about, seriously, folks, start with this stuff. Your score will go up. You'll learn how to use Ally. Start here. Start easy. You don't give your students the hardest thing first. Use scaffolds. This is how we're scaffolding for you. Start with this stuff first and then work through this. Okay. I'd focus on your classes for spring more than I would the ones for fall. Try and get ahead. This is very much a semester where we are all learning about Ally and how to use Ally.
So I just want to kind of chime in, and this is something I had said at the beginning before we had started, but this is kind of fun. I even hasten to say, like it's once you see those dials go up and your scores go up, like if I get 10 minutes before a meeting, I'm just making something a little bit more accessible in my course. And I found after a couple weeks of doing that, like it's huge the differences that it's kind of made in my ally scores of accessibility of my course. So it looks daunting. It sounds like a lot. Once you start doing it, it's a lot easier than it seems. There are a couple little issues, like when you're getting, through all the easy ones, but really just do this. It's not as bad as it sounds. And Beth asked in the chat, when is this going to look like when there's an expectation in place? I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if
I don't
Christina's.
know. I'm not the accessibility police. There's no accessibility police. I am just here to help you. So I'm really not a person who can even, I imagine like most things at this school, faculty senate would make the decision. I live in Texas. We have a very different relationship to faculty senates in this state. So, yeah, I feel empowered to discuss this with faculty senate.
I'll also put a little shout out to our instructional design team, Christina and Todd are here. Obviously, we have many others as well. I think Trina's on the call. They are super amazing to work with. So if you're kind of start at this and you're like, I don't know what I'm doing, they will sit with you virtually or in person, and they'll make this happen with you. It's really an amazing expertise that they have that they can share with us. The reason that we do workshops like this and they do the trainings and things is they don't expect us to know everything they know. So let them help you. They really are just an amazing resource that we have at our campus.
Thank you.
So any additional questions for now? So someone asked, who is teaching the students how to use the Ally tools? Good question, Natalie.
Ooh, good question. So we actually have, so right now, just as like a stopgap, we have a Ally for Everything page. And I will put that in the chat along with a couple other things I was copying and pasting.
I understand there is a plan for the rollout for the students coming soon, coming anyway. There's a plan being formed, but I don't know much more about it than that.
Yeah. On that Ally for Canvas page, there's some information for students. I will say, particularly in Kansas and Missouri, Ally is quite large in the K through 12 space. A lot of the students who need this are hopefully, and that's not, we don't assume, but hopefully they're going to know what they're looking for. So there is a strong Anthology Ally contingency in the Kansas, Missouri area, which is where many of our students come from.
And I think that's one of the reasons I'm in the student accessibility area, is because I help with those students who need the accommodations and things like that, and we're putting together a page as well. Now we're all about, let's have an Ally page, let's have one location and not spread it all over the place. But that's more for faculty, and for students, we'll try and find where we can best reach them. But yeah, there's a lot of great study tools in there, and I want to do some open forums with students about studying hacks and things like that, searchable text, and using this accessibility to their advantage. I'm gonna share a little bit. I put some FAQs in here so I wouldn't interrupt Christina while she was talking, but these are some questions that come up commonly, or complaints that come up commonly, and so I put them in the chat, but not everybody reads the chat. But most scores, when you fix something, it updates almost immediately. Now, the first week or two that we had access to this, and a lot of people were updating, and we had workshops, and people had their laptops in there, it had a little bit of lag, but a little bit of lag as in a minute or two. But usually when you fix something, your score updates immediately. It already, when we first installed it, it already read all the files and scored them. So now it's just looking for changes. So if you fix something, or you think you fixed something and you didn't, it never did update, then contact the Ally help address that's on the pages. The next one is alt text. I've talked about this a couple times. It makes your images searchable for students who are reviewing a larger lesson, not just students with side issues. But if I'm have a 10-page lesson and I want to know something about Abraham Lincoln, and there's no text in the entire document about Abraham Lincoln, but there is a photo of Abraham Lincoln, and I have alt text in there, then that makes that searchable in that lesson. And I don't have to dig through and read through all of the text to find where that was. One of the bigger complaints and the things that frustrated me when I first used Ally was my score would be 47. I would fix something that was the number one issue, and then my score would be 48 or something like that. That usually means that there's more than one issue, and it's sort of hidden, but it is a button. But there's a little place right next to where it talks about where it shows your score, where it says all issues, and that lists out if there's more than one issue. So, don't get frustrated and say, well, it said I had a 45 and I fixed it, and now it says I'm still below passing or whatever. It's because there's more than one issue. So when you refresh or go back and look at that, you might see that. And you can also pick and choose which one of those you want to fix first, too, if you already know how to fix other things. And then I think there was one more FAQ that I put in there.
We've got one in the chat that I'll answer real quick. So Don was asking, why does my score fluctuate a bit, even when I haven't made any changes? It's slow to update, so it might actually be doing a fix for something, like it might finally be recognizing a fix you did earlier. They also did a big update in September. There's a big one in April and there's another one in September, so it might be catching things a little bit differently. It might be a little bit more sensitive. So one of those two things.
All right. Well, we are about done. So I would like to thank Christina and Todd for giving an amazing presentation and in leading our efforts toward becoming a more accessible campus. So I really do appreciate that. I'll remind everyone here that we have another event coming up next week, really important one. Andy Thompson, Camilla Roberts, Jason Maysberg Tomlinson will be representing their offices about how we can support our students in lots of different ways. We have a professional development certificate you earn. My colleagues will drop that in the chat, and we would love you to do a event survey, and my colleagues will drop that link into the chat as well to tell us how this event went for you. Look forward to seeing you next week, and until then, if you have any questions, reach out. We have a TLC hub you can reach out on, or you can reach out to our instructional design team, and they will help out with lots of things, including accessibility. So thank you all for your time today, and I hope you have a great rest of your afternoon.